Welcome, everybody, to another episode of MC Fireside Chats. My name is Brian Searl with Insider Perks and Modern Campground. Excited to be here with you again for a really good episode on data, trends, and all that kind of stuff. We've got Miguel from the Mexican Glamping Association, Scott from Cairn Consulting, Phil from RVDA, Deneen, and Jen, our special guest, and Simon Neal from Camp Map, all the way from Croatia. Welcome, guys. You want to go briefly around the room and just introduce yourselves for those of the people who are watching who don't know who you are? Do you want to start, Phil?
Hi, I'm Phil Ingrassia. I'm president of the RV Dealers Association of America. We represent motorhome and travel trailer dealers all across the U.S.
Thanks for being here, Phil. Appreciate it. Whoever wants to go next. I mean, I can call on people if you really want me to.
I'm Scott Bahr, the president of the Cairn Consulting Group. We're a market research organization conducting market research across outdoor hospitality and the RVing world as well. So yeah, we're pretty much immersed in data from dawn till dusk.
I like
even longer now because the days are too short.
I like your plant back there. Is that real?
Yes, it is.
I like it. It's like, it kind of looks like the plant I have, but like not quite as like rough around the edges. What kind of plant is it?
That's rubber? Like a rubber plant.
Oh, see, Jessica said rubber.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you, Scott. Simon?
Yeah, I'm Simon, the founder of Camp Map. So we're a web platform that helps campsites and campgrounds improve marketing and guest experience with digital premium sitemaps.
Simon, Miguel?
Hello, everyone. I'm Miguel. I'm the president of the Mexican Glamping Association. I get a little bit better weather nowadays than compared to the rest of the folks. So I'm happy to be here. I think that this might be the last show of the year, isn't it?
It is, yeah, for this group, yeah. Yep, I think we have one more MC Fireside Chats next week with a different group, and then we have like a wrap-up episode, and then we're off for like 2 weeks.
Where's the sparkling wine and like the 2026 glasses and whatever?
I was waiting on you to ship those to us, right?
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you for bringing that up.
We should have those for sure. Do tariffs impact that, or they cost more? I think there wasn't a budget for it this year. I asked Phil to donate money, and he was like, "Nope, that costs too much money." So, Deneen and Jen are our two special guests. Deneen, you want to go first?
Sure. Deneen Allen. I'm the CEO and founder of FireCircle, which is a tourism and hospitality entrepreneur accelerator. We host digital programs and mentorship all across Canada and now into the US and Jamaica recently. And we have hundreds of entrepreneurs in our program and as members in FireCircle, and all getting together in similar fashion to this, Brian, so that they can talk to each other about all sectors of the tourism industry. But I'm happy to be here on an outdoor hospitality podcast. So thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah. Anytime we can facilitate conversations between people, we always end up learning more, I think. So, Jen, last but not least, of course.
Yeah. I'm Jen, and I am a campground owner here in Missoula, Montana. We have Jim and Mary's RV Park.
How do you get Jim and Mary's RV Park and your name's Jen?
We purchased it from Jim and Mary way back. This is our 25th season. And when we bought the park, they had a really great following, a great reputation, lots of repeat business. And so we don't want to scare anybody away. And it's worked for us. I've been called Mary a lot.
That's kind of the most interesting push and pull ever. Because you're right. Like, I'm a marketing guy, and when I come in and people were like, I'm going to take over a campground or buy it, or change a brand name that's existed for 20 or 30 years that has a really good following, and you're like, well, you probably shouldn't change the name. But that's a really unique, interesting, like, I swear I own it. It's called Jim and Mary's, but my name is Jen. I promise you, I really am the owner.
Yeah, well, sometimes I deny it, and it makes it easier too. So it depends on if they're complimenting me or.
I like you. Glass half full. Always have a positive perspective. All right, guys. So we're gonna toss this to the room as we normally do at the beginning of every episode. It's been a little bit since we've been together. Phil, a little bit longer for you. You've been to conventions and some other places doing some cool things with RVDA. Is there anything that's come across your guys' desk that you think we should talk about here to start the episode?
Well, a couple things came out this week, actually. One was the RVIA wholesale shipment forecast for North America for 2026. And, a lot of people have been watching this with, a lot of economic uncertainty on both sides of the border, tariffs hanging over everybody a little bit. But the forecast is actually for some incremental improvement, building on the incremental improvement that we had this year. So right now, in 2025, RV shipments in the U.S. and Canada are up about 3% year over year,
Okay.
which is, kind of pretty much what people expected. And then the 2026 forecast that just came out is showing some more incremental growth for 2026, probably around that same, 2 to 3% increase over 2025. So, we're seeing kind of a stair step increase in RV activity, which overall is good. I think there's a few things building into that. One in the U.S., particularly, are lower interest rates. Hopefully, some tariff stability as far as announcements coming out of Washington D.C. And then in the U.S. There's an expected increase in income tax returns. And a lot of times in past years, when there's been higher increases
Refunds,
in refunds, that goes right into discretionary spending. So those are some tailwinds, I think, that we have that are helping push us along. But you never know. There's always things going on. But I guess cautious optimism is the thing here. And that's exactly Thor put out their, Thor Industries put out their first quarter results, which were better expected too, which is another data point.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's cautious optimism for everybody, for the RV industry, for the campground industry, for me in marketing and AI. Like, it's all cautious optimism. It seems to be teetering on a, like, which way is it going to go? We're not sure. But like, as long as Phil's working with RVDA and working with your dealers and your members and the RVIA and all those other people to make everything we can do build a really good foundational base for like if we're doing everything we can do, we're setting the foundation for if it lifts off, it does. If it doesn't, then that's not what we want. But like, at least we're doing everything we can, right?
Right. And dealers have been very cautious on building inventory. So I think, I think we're set up for success. Certainly some economic things have to go our way. We need consumer confidence to rebound. We need to, have a better stability, I think, especially on the tariff issue for a lot of folks. I think that, we're set up for success. And I think that's kind of reflected in these, incrementally better forecasts.
I don't want to do.
I have a question for you, Phil.
Scott.
And that is, in some of the forecasts I see, not in the RV industry, but in other sectors, saying that a lot of the improvements, for example, retail sales overall, being driven by the higher income category markets are kind of projected to spend a little bit more this year. You think that's being reflected in this? And is it impacting the types of models that are being shipped and being requested out there from the dealerships?
Well, I do think that we're still seeing a lot of growth in the entry-level and mid-level travel trailer market, although I am hearing entry-level has, like you're saying, has not been as robust maybe. You're always going to have that entry-level, the folding camping trailers, entry-level travel trailers kind of drive a volume. But for a lot of the manufacturers and dealers, that mid to higher level unit is a more profitable unit to sell. And I think you're right. I think that we are seeing some of the higher end fifth wheels doing better than maybe they had been in the past.
Okay.
And it is a discretionary income purchase. Let's face it. It's like boats. It's like power sports. These are not something to get your work every day. People got to be feeling good about their jobs, about the stock market, all these things that are baked into consumer sentiment.
Yep. Okay.
For sure.
Yeah,
Anybody else?
Phil, could I ask Phil a question? Phil, I wondered in Canada when the numbers came off after COVID, I wondered if there was any concerted effort happening up here with new Canadians and educating them on the RV industry and the opportunity for camping and teaching them how to camp using an RV or trailer, any version of an RV. How does that happen down in the U.S.? Like, is any of the lift coming from immigration, from new Americans, or how would you describe the sort of the bulk of the market?
Well, there's been quite a few studies done about pandemic buyers. And one of the big concerns that the industry had during that bump, both on both sides of the border, was, are we going to be able to retain those people? Are they going to go on cruises? Are they going to go find something else to do with their discretionary purchases? And we've done some studies, and remarkably, and maybe not remarkably, but between 60 and 70%, depending on the product type, of those pandemic buyers are going to buy again, or at least are telling people that they're considering buying again, which is pretty good. So we're holding on to those folks, which I think is great. The new market entrants are coming from a lot of different sources, and certainly Scott's well-versed in that because of all these different types of people that are camping, so to speak, whether they're glamping, whether they're in more rustic areas or overlanders. There's just so many different types of people who may not even consider themselves RVers that are using the product now, which is good news again for the industry.
Is there any data like in that RVDA or RVIA collects about what people are planning to use the RVs for, like long-term transient BLM land, private campgrounds? Like, is there any data that's collected about that?
Scott's probably got some data on that.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. RVIA does collect that information quarterly.
Do you have any sense of, like, as I'm just asking, maybe I'm putting words into Jen's mouth, or, like Miguel's mouth in Mexico, and because obviously there's RVs down there, put my mouth too for everybody. Like what can we expect in 2026 from these new sales is where maybe I'm asking.
You're going to see a little bit of movement, it looks like, toward the less expensive forms of RVing. The staying in, a little bit more boondocking, a little bit more, BLM land. Overlanding is a growing sector. We're seeing that pop up a lot more as well. But people are using their RVs, and it seems that it is growing a little bit too for using RVs for like events. They're calling them, what do they call the parents who take their kids to sporting events all the time? There's a new word for it. But a lot of RVers are doing that. In fact, they're buying their RVs. The kids are in like travel sports and stuff like that. So they're instead of renting hotel rooms and stuff like that, the parents are getting together as a group, and they're traveling to sporting events, and also just festivals and so on. Those things are all very robust. We didn't see a drop off. I thought we might see a drop off like in the post-COVID years, but in fact, we've seen growth in those areas. People see the RV as an opportunity to kind of the group stuff is something we're seeing a lot more of. It was down for years after RVers. It seemed like we're a part of these groups and so on. But now it's a lot of self-initiated, and we're seeing some climbing interest in that. The older millennial group, surprisingly enough, is really kind of driving a lot of that.
Jen, how was your season, if you don't mind sharing, and then tell us a little bit about your park afterward, please?
Yeah, so here in Missoula and Montana in general, what I would say is, I would echo what Scott just said. Events, sporting events, music, festivals, my town in particular has done a great job of bringing a lot of new events to town and promoting those nationwide. So when you talk about, the financial aspects of RVing, I've always felt like over the past 25 years, it is budget traveling in a sense. Those parents that are traveling for sporting events, that's expensive to hotel it and eat out for every meal. although it's not cheap to RV and stay in private campgrounds, it's you can cook your own meals, and it's a lot less expensive than a local hotel, and that goes double for music events and so forth, and especially in an era of dynamic pricing. So the price jacks up for all those hotels. They certainly sell out here in town, and people are looking for a little bit less expensive way to do that. Plus, then they also have a vehicle to get around in a state like Montana. They can see a lot more and avoid renting another vehicle.
I had an interesting discussion about that actually on LinkedIn the other day. I was talking about, I think before the show, I was talking to you guys about how I have my AI agent post on LinkedIn or whatever, and it wrote a topic about how Waymo was expanding their self-driving cars to multiple additional cities in the United States. And then it tied that in, as I have it do, with RV parks and how that changes the landscape of that. And what it ended up coming out with was like, this is going to be interesting for RVers who travel and who don't get involved in the local community maybe as much as they should, because they don't have a towaway vehicle, or it's expensive to get into town or whatever else. And so when you, and this is years away, but when you have thousands of those vehicles on the street and you can just get a Waymo and you can take it into town, you don't have to worry about unhooking and bringing a towable with you and doing all that stuff. I think that helps the local communities a lot more too.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a trend, and if we think it's here to stay, is this an opportunity for RV parks to focus a little bit more on the group camping infrastructure, so that you can get all the RVs in one area, you have one fire pit or one pavilion or something that is group focused? Is that do you see an opportunity there?
I know you're going to talk, Scott. Give me 1 second. I'm interested to hear about groups in Mexico from Miguel first, and groups in Croatia, and then I'd love to hear the data, Scott. Can we do it that way?
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Miguel, please.
Fire away.
Like how does this work? Is the glamping industry set up in Mexico to welcome these types of groups, family reunions, stuff like that? Do you guys see a lot of that?
Yeah, well, I would like to start with how 2025 was for the hospitality industry in Mexico, and I also made a small comparison with the States, Canada, UK, and Spain. And what my data is showing me is that, for example, the main hospitality lodging category, which is hotel, has seen a decline in each one of these markets: the US, Mexico, the UK, and Canada, a decline on demand. Now, and from this, the country that has had the steepest decline has been Mexico, which had 12% less demand for hotels in 2025 compared to comparing the first 11 months of 2025 to the first 11 months of 2024. Now, when we are talking about glamping, things are looking up a little bit, although we have steep declines in Spain that had a 5% decrease. Mexico, which we have 7% decrease, and the UK surprisingly has had a 10% decrease on demand for glamping sites. But I think that the country that has gotten the most traction and the most increase on demand for glamping is Canada, with a 20% increase, and I think that it has to do with the tariffs and
Yeah, we all
and
stayed home.
Canadians. Yeah, yeah. Now, now that we have seen that this has been a very rough year for the industry, pretty much regardless of the country, I think that the glampings that will not only survive, that will actually make a decent return on the investment, will be the ones that are catering their commercial strategy for B2B or this type of groups and or parties of people. Like, for example, in my case, in my company, we have 3 individuals that their only focus is bringing in these groups to our glamping sites. Sadly, the average glamping site in Mexico has 4 units, so you cannot host as many people. RVs are not that big in Mexico because of insurance That's a huge liability that nobody wants to take. But I mean, sure, it sounds that I'm being very grim on the industry, but I think that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, which is the World Cup that we have been discussing, which is bound to happen this upcoming summer. So a lot of and why I'm bringing this to the table pretty much for the last 3 or 4 shows, is because a lot of Americans, they don't realize how big this is. So this Friday, December 5th, we're gonna have like this raffle, or where everybody will know which teams are coming to what countries and cities. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of RV operators and owners, they will find a very nice area of opportunity, where if the rates are lower, I can buy like a low entry or basic model, as Scott was saying, and put it to work for me as a Airbnb, using this event that drives a lot of demand. So that's something interesting. Of course, glampings are important. The issue will be, I foresee that a lot of glamping sites, pretty much all over the world, as the industry is maturing, we're going to see a lot of them closing their doors. So only the ones that have designed their property and their commercial efforts to bring in groups will survive in this very tough environment.
Or that they focus on the guest experience, right? Like I ask you about groups, so that's fair. But like, or just something to differentiate themselves between being just another property with 4 more tents, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, but to me, and I mentioned this in I think that in my last participation, the guest experience. If you take a look on the 5 piece of marketing: people, price, promotion, place, and I'm missing out one. Um, and product, sorry. uh, the product, it's very interesting, but if you don't have the right promotion in place, it will be hard for people to know. And a lot of the newcomers to the industry are focusing too much on the guest experience, like, okay, that they greet them well when they arrive to the location, that they, I know, that they have a, like, somebody taking care of them during this they stay. But sadly, to me, that only, since most of the sales are done over the internet, uh, this guest experience to me goes in the people category that sadly you won't get to experience until you are in the location. The closest will be the ratings on platforms like Google Maps or TripAdvisor or Airbnb, Booking.com, whatever. That helps a lot. But I think that in this survival economy, a lot of people, they need to open their properties and their capabilities to new revenue streams and to these events that are coming to certain locations. So it's quite challenging, I will say.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Like, I mean, Scott and I spend a lot of time on, like, we're going to talk on Outwired later about guest experience, and we try to drill that home because we see that there's a little bit of a lack of it in the United States specifically, which is where we're most familiar with. But you're not wrong. Like, it can't just be guest experience. It has to be guest experience combined with telling the story, combined with showing people how it is before the promotion. And then also, of course, price comes into account, right? I think price is going to be the thing that's going to hurt a lot of people in 2026. But then if you get price out of the way, and you still have, as we talked about, this K-shaped economy where the top 10% are spending 50% of the consumer discretionary spending in the United States, those people, after you discount price, are still willing to maybe take a vacation instead of 2. But then where they're going to go, I think, is dictated by the guest experience. I think maybe a little bit about price, but guest experience with price, whereas the lower income would be just price, right? Is that fair, or am I off base?
Are we including product? Like, are we including the physical?
We should include everything, I think, in this discussion, right?
Yeah, when you say guest experience, to me, it's also, and this is where, in Canada, we're very uncompetitive. vis-a-vis the rest of the world on physical presentation, like the actual merchandising, the caliber of the physical plant. It's really, when you get out into rural and remote, it sort of goes off a cliff, except for a handful of properties, outdoor hospitality properties in Canada. So, when I was wondering, Miguel, if you were referencing the digital presentation, the digital storefront, and the importance of that when you're when you're online and you're trying to pick whether you're going to book an outdoor hospitality vacation or you're going to go to a fixed roof accommodation resort somewhere. We are competing with other sectors. The outdoor hospitality sector is competing with other lodging sectors. So to me, if your physical presentation, whether it's your digital storefront or the property itself, and the way that you present that is not competitive, you're already at a loss, right? You're already behind the eight ball when someone goes shopping when they do, as Brian says, have the discretionary income to make that purchase.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that that's part of it. But at the end, I also see that long gone are the days where you will like have a random Instagram profile, a random Facebook profile, have low quality pictures, and then that those will drive a lot of bookings to your
Agree.
property. Nowadays, you need to be on point. Um, at the end, I really love what Scott and Phil were saying, that I think that the industry, and it's not only glamping, RVs, or even hotels, but the whole service industry, the ones that make it are the ones that show something that people they fall in love with. And sadly, a lot of the small operators, they think that I'm gonna jump into this trend called glamping, RV, whatever, and that will be more than enough. And actually, to me, what I've been telling people, I had this conversation yesterday with a person that wants to open a glamping site in Mexico, and I told them that you should take a look on what the big guys do, and not only in hospitality. Like, for example, Coca-Cola, a lot of their revenue goes towards promotion only, and a lot of hoteliers, glamping owners, RV operators, they don't even think about investing in different platforms or having nice pictures and whatever. So I think that I mean, right now in the next 6 months, I think that that's critical. But as the rates go lower, maybe that's where we will see another increase on the supply side of rooms, that being hotels, glampings, or RVs. But again, I think that this is a very serious business that we are, because a lot of people they think, okay, I'm just gonna spend whatever amount, and it's not that much. But I think that whatever amount that you are spending, most of the people that I've met, they're their life savings, and it's something that you don't want to mess with.
That's fair. Simon, what do you think of this whole discussion? And as far as your experience in Europe, Croatia, because I was just over there at some of the conferences, but
Yeah, just to drop a bit of a statistic in based on the RV sales. So I know Phil was talking about their results. So in Germany, which is a good reference for the whole of Europe, really, their RV sales, smaller RVs, were up 12.4% on last year, which is really good because they've struggled for quite a few years, actually. So this was a nice sign that things are kind of recovering and on a nice trend. Just to drop that in. Yeah, in terms of, the kind of market in Europe for outdoor hospitality, it's pretty mature, it's pretty evolved. They're pretty good at the guest experience. And also there's been a huge increase in product quality, which is, the actual physical assets, over the last few years. So it's doing well as a market, and definitely the biggest demographic is the summer family holiday season, and all kind of locations are set up to deal with that and cater to that specifically, and that includes the groups as well. It's very easy to go as a family group or bring other extended family or with friends. That's kind of well accepted and well catered for. In the peak seasons, which is, in July, August, which is always full in Southern Europe. Everybody travels from the north to get some sunshine. And then the shoulder seasons is much more about, the young couples, the older couples, the retirees, things like that, where it's a bit more spread out. But for sure, it's pretty well matured in the whole guest experience and marketing that as well.
Is there, and I know I was over there, saw a bunch of presentations. I saw, like, Phil, you got to pitch a campground on this. I saw an RV resort in Croatia, or a glamping resort that had private pools on every RV site. We need to bring that to the United States, I think, somehow. But so is there a difference, Simon? I saw a lot of the luxury upscale, like hybrid caravan camping and glamping units, cabin rentals, that kind of stuff. Is there like a mid-tier of a glamping resort in Europe, like in between the really high luxury and the tent only?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot mixed now. So you're going to have your individual glamping, resorts that are kind of more small entrepreneurs in the last few years, had a bit of land or wanted to get into a different business who created those locations. But the main focus is really mixed. So you have a traditional campground RV resort that has your tent sites, which in Europe, a tent site is basically the same as an RV site. There's no difference. You fit a tent or an RV. Sometimes you'll get a specific site for huge ones, but generally it's mixed. And they're the ones who've been investing in, the glamping tents, the cabins, the mobile homes, and that just becomes part of that existing, location. So that is been where the biggest investment and growth, and then you cater for everybody, right? So you have a big mix on the same campground, from the cheaper site locations, to small RVs, to big RVs, to glamping, to the kind of lower level cabins, to the really super high level that have the pools and the sauna and all of this stuff in the same big campground.
So there really is no, like, I think the UK is maybe an exception, but there really is no, in most of Europe, standalone glamping only, for the most part. I mean, I'm sure there are here and there, right? But
it's definitely a lower percentage. It's much more about combined. Yeah.
That's interesting. So Scott, now circling back to you on the data, what do you think of that? Because we've talked about standalone maybe working better over here, haven't we?
Yeah, actually we have. Yeah, the group stuff. I was originally just going to say whether it's a great opportunity, no matter how you slice it. The people who travel in those groups are super loyal. They're really good guests. They spend a lot of money, and if they have a good experience, they'll be back. One of the reasons is that a lot of times they have a hard time finding people who can accommodate what they're looking for. And part of that is that mixed use that Simon and Brian were just kind of alluding to. Like, you have some people traveling in RVs, some people staying in tents, maybe some people want to run a cabin. That's a little more difficult because you can't just pick those up and move them. But the idea is that people travel and they have different preferences within that group. Not everyone will be in an RV. Not everyone will be in a tent. But if you can set up your campground so that you can bring those folks in, it's just a great opportunity. We've also heard from some campgrounds, and Jen probably knows about this too, who want to use the campground as a venue for a family reunion, even in weddings. Small wedding groups love to stay there, and so if you can accommodate those groups, it's again. But the mixed use stuff is important in being able to execute that effectively. But yeah, did I answer your question, Brian, or did I just ramble?
No, I think that was a good answer to the group question for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to see how this evolves over time, right? As in all the countries that we've just mentioned. But how does that end up evolving? Is it the same? Like, because you tend to think like Europe is more ahead of us as far as glamping goes. and the guest experience is what my takeaway was from like a conference in like set in France. But does it evolve the same way in the United States, or does it evolve differently because we have more land? And then is there a place for more separate glamping resorts and hybrid resorts, and who are the people that go to each? And I think we're still too early to know that for sure.
Just to add something to Scott's comment, travel agents are critical for glamping sites nowadays. And what we have seen based on our data at Nightly Living at my company is that a lot of people, they are doing these family retreats,
Mhm.
like once in a lifetime gathering or the last rodeo. You never know. But like, and they're using the glamping sites as a venue for that, even more than weddings. So I think that these are like some key takeaways for people to start thinking about their promotion plans for next year, because basically you can have pictures that show that, or the copywriting that you will be using, those type of things that might be silly and small, but these are huge insights that we're giving out for free.
And net pricing, right? The understanding what it means to understand your cost base, and you're setting a net price so that you can allow for those travel trade commissions, whether it's a travel agent or whether it's a reseller, a tour operator from overseas, whatever it is. And there's a lot of misunderstanding about what is net pricing or wholesale pricing, which is maybe a word that people are more familiar with. And we get the comment a lot that it feels to the operator like they're giving up all this money. And it's like, well, no, that entity just sold your inventory for you. They've marketed it to their audience. They've actually done a whole bunch of the work for you. So you need to give them a commission because they're doing that work for you as the travel trade. So it's sometimes hard to explain that to operators, that you have your retail price, which is what you're going to sell direct to consumer, and then you have your net pricing, which is what you would sell to a wholesaler, a travel agent, a reseller.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for a lot of small business owners, myself included, right? To there's so many hats that you have to wear throughout your business, and so sometimes it becomes hard to have the time to devote to get into the weeds of finances, like you're talking about, right? I mean, we still have so many. I can't even count the number of parks that we have that after they printed 33% more money after COVID in the United States. So basically the inflation went up 33% in the last 4 or 5 years, have only raised their rates 2 to 3%, which means
Yeah.
like you're 30% cheaper than you were 5 years ago. And you're like,
This
but they
and
don't think about that.
Exactly. This happens a lot with seasonal sites because I describe it as being held hostage by your repeat guests, because everyone's afraid to, raise their prices too much. They don't want to upset anybody. Meanwhile, everything else that guest is paying for has gone up regularly over the past few months, let alone the past, few years. And so it is really important for us to get operators to understand that they're a commodity like anything else, and it's okay to keep up with inflation, to keep up with pricing. I see so much money being left on the table.
The one important thing to keep in mind with the pricing discussion is that when your pricing is part of the perception, it is part of the experience. People will assign something to their experience based on what they pay. So
Of course.
it's a fine line, and it's hard. And I know exactly what you're saying, Deneen, because we did some research in post-COVID about overcrowding at campgrounds, for example. And everybody kept saying that there were no campsites available. But all the campground owners are saying, we have plenty of sites. And what it was is chatter. There was a lot of chatter out there that was creating this. We found that something like over half the people who said that there was overcrowding had not even personally experienced it. And so it becomes, as prices of everything else increase, the perception comes into play, where the person thinks that they're paying more. And this is where the communications come in. And this is where the experts, that I'm not one in this part, by the way, is how you communicate that value that you offer so that the person understands it. If you have a big jump in prices and someone's a regular guest, they're going to be like, whoa, what did you do? Put in a big spa here or something? You're going to hear that kind of thing. So it's important to work with a professional who knows how to communicate and knows how to address this, because again, whatever the person pays, that's how they're going to perceive you. And increases, there's a perception that goes with it. Most people are pretty reasonable. We do price sensitivity research, by the way, and I've priced a lot of different things, but it's one of those things you got to kind of find that zone of tolerance, but understand that how they perceive you when they stay there, the price is going to come into the mix with all the experiences and everything they had. If it doesn't, you've done your job right.
Yeah, that's so well said. Like that value perception is, we're all making these decisions every second of the day on, we are the pricing mechanism as consumers, right? We every time we pay for something, we have said to the market, we will accept this product at this price. So every time we buy something at the grocery store, every time we book a hotel room or an airline flight, every time we buy an RV, we are saying this is the value for money that I expect. And so, yes, we have to pay attention to that as operators. And even if you are just putting your prices up to match inflation, that the value delivery has to be there. Exactly what you're saying, Scott, that the guest has to believe that it's worth it. You will lose a few people. You will lose some of those seasonal or repeat guests because you have to do it from a business standpoint, and you're being reasonable. You're being reasonable about it, and you're delivering value, or the value that's reflected in your pricing, and you will still lose people because it's just I call it the highest price without going over, but for that guest it just went over, right? So, and we always advocate for no discounting. It's understand your base pricing, and then you go up from there. So your base pricing is it's the base, it's the bottom, right? And then you go up from there. So yeah, the highest price without going over.
The price is right. Yes. Jen, tell us how you think about this at your RV
Yeah, I
park.
have a lot of thoughts. For us, being a smaller campground one, and in the past, we primarily catered to the older generation of retiree RVers. And we don't have a playground or a pool. And so some of the other parks had more of a family in the area, have had more of a family oriented niche, and we kind of steered away from that. And the older guests, back when my price was half or less of what it is today, complained about the price. Would come in and sometimes say, the story, just kind of a snarky comment, oh, holy cow, that's so expensive. And one trend that I have seen, and maybe as the demographic has changed, but even with those older guests, people are paying more for everything. And they're complaining a lot less at me about my prices. Now, I did no huge jumps. We creep up a little bit every year. We did a little bit more during and post-COVID, but we keep it incremental until we catch up to where we want to be, so that it's not a sticker shock, because we do have a ton of repeat guests. Yeah, but also, I'll go back to the thing that people perceive RVing and camping as, not everybody, but they perceive it as a value. They are saving money on the hotels. They're saving money on the restaurants. In a big picture of a vacation, regardless of what the facts are, is still, I think, perceived as a less expensive way to travel and get your vacation in. So if that's their goal, a discount is an incentive. It takes a little sting out of it. And I know, Deneen, you say no discounts, but there are a lot of campground or camper clubs, Good Sam, and here in the U.S. anyway, that people get involved in for the value of it. And it's 10%. We build our price around that because a lot of people have it. And they think, I'm guilty of it when I shop too. Like if I get a little 10% discount, it makes me feel a little bit better about the money that I spend. And maybe the increase in the rate year over year too. So I guess I see a lot less complaining because everything's more expensive. And I do think in general, people understand I'm paying more for power. I'm paying more for my infrastructure. I'm paying more in property taxes. They know everything went up.
Yeah. And I think you can frame those discounts in fun ways that, you know, and you're always moving off that floor rate. You're never going below that floor that you've set as like, this is like our base price. So 100%, there's so many promotions that we can do, so many fun ways of offering additional value. Sometimes it's giving something that doesn't cost you a lot to give to them instead of discounting the rate, right? So it might be something they get on arrival. It might be something you do that is, you know, it's an increment, it's a very low incremental cost to you, but you know, it's third night for a discount, right? Or something like that, especially in glamping where you're really mimicking the overhead of a room night in a hotel where you've got housekeeping and things like that, right? Additional.
The key is how you frame it, right? The key is how you frame everything. And so, like, I remember reading an article about Black Friday here in the United States. When I say here in the United States, I'm in Calgary, but you understand. In the United States, where like they were talking about how the stores had sales and then the consumers weren't actually buying as much as they normally do on Friday. So the stores discounted more on Saturday and Sunday, and then they started buying. So there's this mindset of the consumer that like, I expect a discount before I buy. I expect to, maybe not on Black Friday, see the value, but not the same way we're talking about it, right? So I think there's a mindset in the consumer that like everything is going to be discounted at some point somewhere. I just have to wait for the right opportunity, which is maybe too much of a over compensation on the side of business people. But I don't know. I want to spend the last couple minutes of the show. We have 13 minutes left. I'm going to try something new virtually. We only done it in show or in person at the OHI conference, and then we did it at KOA, where I want each of you guys to ask a question to one other guest. So, but you can only ask one person one time. So what I mean by that is like, Jen, if you ask Phil a question, no one else can ask Phil a question. And then we'll just do process of elimination, and we'll see if we can get some good answers out of people. Anything you want to ask anybody. We'll start with our special guests. We'll do Jen first. Pick anybody you want.
I'm going to assume that this question is best for Scott, but I'm not quite sure. In terms of the US anyway, I have been seeing a lot of trends towards corporations gobbling up the little mom and pop parks. And I'm just wondering if there's any data on, obviously they can offer more with the money behind it in terms of, you know, perks and big water parks and who knows what else they can put in and offer to guests. But is there any data out there that shows, you know, I'm seeing campers are looking for a more like traditional camping experience. They want the campfire talk. And we lean in really hard to that mom and pop thing because of the people buying up big parks and then becoming more corporate. Is there any camper data out there about what people are really interested in, or is it just still really varied depending on where they go?
There is. It does vary, and there is a very large market for folks who would like to stay at the mom and pop types of parks with maybe not all the bells and whistles that you get at other locations. There's a movement right now for a little bit of more disconnection. People want authenticity in their experiences. They may be like where you're at near Missoula. The whole idea of, you know, immersion in the culture there in Missoula, in the town, the food, the experiences, what's the surrounding lands that you're by. That's what people are seeking. if you're if you're located, for example, near a very large urban area, you might get a different type of guest who comes in there and probably wants a little bit more entertainment. They want things to do. Or if your park is not located near some of those features, you need more that's on site. So what we've been seeing is that there is a movement toward I sometimes joke and I call it the Luddite movement. People who want to be a little bit more disconnected, a little bit
Rustic,
more
Scott, rustic.
I know. I like using Luddite though around Brian. But no, I know exactly what you're saying. It's like, yeah, and we saw that peak up a little bit last year among some of the younger folks, that there's that desire there. They're not doing it yet, but that desire is there for something a little bit more rustic, Phil. And I see there being especially in some areas, a movement toward that. The campfire experience is always the number one draw. It's the number one draw, and people like that. They like the social part of it, sitting around the campfire, making s'mores. That experience rises to the top in everything we do, and I won't try to take up everyone's time because I know we have more questions.
Well, Scott, you're next. You get to ask somebody now. We're going in.
Oh boy. I guess I'm going to ask Miguel. Miguel, where do you see the Mexican market heading in terms of, and I'm going to go back to what we were just talking about, rustic camping. I know you're involved in glamping, but you also have your finger on the pulse of what's going on in Mexico. Is there a good market for people that want a more rustic experience, or is that still something that's farther out on the horizon, maybe?
Can you define rustic, just so we are aligned?
Fewer amenities, few services and amenities, maybe staying in a tent even.
Got it. Okay, well, actually, the Mexican market, I think that it's priming right now the other side of the spectrum, not rustic, but more luxurious. At the end, people, they want to get more from the peso that they're paying for their experience. So what I'm seeing is that a lot of, I mean, almost 95% of the operators in Mexico, or the glamping owners in Mexico, they have this, this very basic experience.
Mhm.
So what that will mean is that I foresee that the industry that the industry will consolidate in Mexico, which means basically a lot of mom and pop closing down their glamping sites. That's number one. And the ones that survive, either they improve their product, or basically they will improve their products. Most of the, let's call the corporate glamping operators in Mexico, I am not seeing that they're opening as many locations as they did, which basically it's three. Grupo Presidente, we have Wonder Cabins, and Nantly Living, my company, because I think that these corporate entities are being very cautious, because, as I was telling you, demand is decreasing, the product is getting more complex and more expensive. So at the end, with the cost of labor, you might as well build a regular hotel than a glamping site. But I think that there are areas of opportunity that people, they can monetize, which is basically right next to natural parks. Our infrastructure has nothing to do what you guys have in the States, Canada, and Europe. So these natural parks at the end are driving a lot of visitors, and from that 100%, the top 10%, the top 5%, they will pay prime for those experiences. So I don't know if that answered the question.
No, that's great. No, that helps.
Your turn, Miguel.
My turn. I'm gonna go with Simon, and I will ask him, what's his vision for 2026, especially that you have a SaaS platform that allows you to see different markets very very fast.
Yeah, I mean, we don't necessarily track that high level stuff in such a way. But I think, yeah, this 2025 was a very uncertain before the season, and it turned out to be kind of okay. So I'm optimistic that 2026 is going to build on that and be better. And I'm hoping for, globally, a lot of better news coming out of the first part of 2026 that's going to help, relax everybody a bit and make everybody a bit more comfortable traveling around and spending again. So that's kind of my hope and prediction.
Your turn, Simon.
Uh, okay, I'm going to jump on your idea, actually, Miguel, and throw something out there a bit. The World Cup, it's going to be enormous, and the opportunity is there. And you mentioned something about.
Sorry, I don't mean to rain on your parade, but you can't ask Miguel because somebody else already asked Miguel a question. You can
All
ask somebody
right.
who hasn't had a question.
No, I'm asking Phil.
Oh, okay,
but
okay,
I'm
all right. Sorry.
using. You mentioned the idea of, campground owners getting hold of RVs and sticking them on sites and Airbnb-ing them. And I think that's amazing because you can basically very quickly change what you're selling to cater for that very short term but super intense market that's coming. So Phil, is there a way to kind of capitalize on that based on what you know on the RV industry in the US?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things going on next year, and I was just talking to one of our major rental companies about some of the what they call tailwinds that are really should boost the U.S. RV rental market next year. Not only do we have World Cup coming in, so a lot of international visitors coming to U.S., Mexico, but we also have America 250, which is the big celebration of 250 years of the United States founding. So there's going to be events all over the country, and they are beefing up their rental operations as much as they can. Um, However, I will say over the last couple of years, they weren't buying as many for their fleets, but I do think they are planning for a big year of RV rentals, just with all these special events and just World Cup being one of them. I don't know, frankly, how much advanced planning is going on in the campground industry, and maybe Scott or Brian would have more information on that. But I'm not hearing a lot about that. But I do know that the RV rental companies are gearing up for some major events.
It's on you, Phil.
I would ask Jen a question. We've pumped a lot of first-time buyers during COVID into kind of the RV camping ecosystem. If you could give one or two pieces of advice to RV dealers who are and you see first-timers or inexperienced RVers come into your campground, how could the RV dealer prepare those folks a little bit better for their first or maybe their infrequent camping experience so that they enjoy the experience more?
You know, I guess I would have to say setting them up with some tools for advanced planning. I think a lot of the bigger problems is people roll into town and there's no sites to be had because they haven't planned ahead. And those newbies maybe just don't know that they need to get on there and pre-book. Other than that, I'm the run through. We have a lot of big dealers in Montana, and the run through is down quick and dirty. They don't know what they're doing when they get here. But I always tell them your neighbors is your best resource because other RVers love to help you. So, I don't know that they could spend a little more time on the important things like dumping your sewer, plugging into power, where to find your breaker box.
All right. Deneen is the last one, but Deneen, we've ran out of people for you to ask, so you can ask anybody then. You get a free for all.
Oh, okay. Okay. I wanted to ask about RV resale and what So I know you may not have stats. Do you have stats for Canada as well, Bill?
I do not have Canadian stats, and unfortunately, Eleonore Hamm, who's RVD of Canada, isn't with us. But I can talk generally about resale.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that, because we've got a lot of members who are, thinking about buying used RVs and using them for glamping, sort of setup, things like that. Just wondering what the or how they're holding their value, what that market is like.
Well, there's an old saw that there's 2 used RVs sold for every new one that's sold every year, and that basically, amazingly, kind of holds up through almost every type of economic environment we're in. Dealers will sell about, depending on the dealership, maybe 30 to 40% of their volume could be used. Um, but that varies quite a bit. I would say that, and of course, I work for the dealers, but I would encourage people to, buy used from an RV dealer, because the unit has pretty much been checked out versus private sale. But there's a burgeoning private sale market as well. Um, RV values on used have been pretty much steady. I do think recently the values may have ticked up a bit because of the affordability issue. People are looking for a bargain, and used are cheaper. But now with interest rates coming down, when people are making those comparisons, should I buy new or should I buy used? And there's not that much difference in your monthly payment to that payment buyer between new and used.
Right.
It's an easy decision to make to go new for a lot of folks.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we are a couple minutes over here. I want to just wrap up the show. Just go one by one real quick. Jen, any final thoughts that you have? And then just tell us where they can find more information about Jim and Mary's RV Park.
This was great. I had not participated in a podcast. You guys are full of great information, and I just appreciate being invited. jimandmarys.com, where you can find me.
Love
Thank
it.
you so much for being here, Jen. Simon?
Yeah, just coming down from a heavy show season, so it was really nice to get around to some of the shows, meet lots of people. It was great. If you want to find anything else about Camp Map, just go to campmap.com. You can reach us there quite easily.
Appreciate you being here, Simon. Miguel?
Well, first of all, happy holidays and happy new year. Let's 2026 be a better year than 2025. 2025 wasn't that bad.
Yeah, you don't have the glasses, but you have the stocking behind you. We got that, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah. I have a rosé bottle. If you guys want some. Yeah.
I'm coming over after this. How long's the flight?
This is Chinese rosé, by the way. But anyway, and it's a sparkling rosé. But my point is that, sure. Well, on my side, thank you so much for a year full of knowledge, a year full of friendships. Please, if you are interested on the Mexican and Latin American market, please hit me up. Or if you will like how to drive sales to your American or Canadian RV park or glamping site using the workup, please let me know. It's crazy the amount of people that go to the workup. Well, sadly, this year the main countries that export people to this event are the host. Mexico in Qatar sent a little bit over 50,000 Mexicans to Qatar. The U.S. is a country that buys the most tickets, but because of all the different nationalities that live in there. But for example, we have countries such as Bolivia that might come back to a World Cup. That's going to be a huge market that people are not thinking about them, and so on. So yeah, you can find me on Nantli, NANTLI.travel. And sure, I'll be happy to help, or on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Miguel. And don't forget to reach out to me. We got to set up the Mexico thing because I will forget. I'm old. You're young. So I'm putting it on you. Deneen, final thoughts? And where can they find out more about Fire Circle?
Well, this has been wonderful. What a great format. Thanks for the invitation, Brian. And Fire Circle, thefirecircle.ca. You have to put the in front of Fire Circle, or you get some really weird websites. So thefirecircle.ca. We also do market and feasibility studies. We do physical design. We do operational mentorship, all kinds of things. Yeah, and we're just trying to grow the Canadian market up here. So thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for being here, Deneen. Phil?
Oh, it's just great. I just think this is a great forum because I'm always an and person. You can RV, you can camp, you can glamp, you can do all of these things. I think it's great to get everybody together to talk about these things.
And if they're interested more in learning about what RVA does for the industry?
RVDA.org.
Thank you, Phil. And last but not least, Scott?
Yeah, we got a lot of new stuff coming out this coming year, so we're pretty excited about it. I'd love to spend the next 2 hours telling you all about it in all the detail, but I won't. But
are you going to do that on Outwired?
I'll talk about it a little bit. Yeah, I think we should devote an episode to some of what I'm talking about. I've spent some time in development this year, at the end of the year here, this fall, and I'm pretty excited about some of the stuff we're working on. Working on some really cool stuff with Brian as well. And so stay tuned. KarenConsultingGroup.com. We have a resource library, a lot of reports and data and information there, and we'll be posting more stuff on our website as well as LinkedIn. So yeah, stay tuned. I think it's going to be a fun year. We're going to do our best. One of the things, I just want to say one last thing about one of the things we're working on this year, and if anyone wants to get involved at any level, please let me know. And that is, I'm working on a research initiative on Gen Z. How do we attract more Gen Z folks in? I've started the process, but I'd love more minds put into it and connections to young people. I want to mobilize them. So there's my pitch. Sorry I took so long.
No, that's okay. I'll be involved in that. So appreciate you guys joining us for another episode of MC Fireside Chats. It was a great conversation. It's the last one of the year, so this group together, we'll see you in early 2026 for our first episode. I don't even know. Do we have a first episode? It might be a holiday, so it might be 2 months. I don't know. We'll find out. Anyway, thanks, guys, for being here. If you're not sick and tired of hearing of me and Scott, we will be on Outwired in about 52 and a half minutes, something like that.
Something like
for
that, yeah.
A brief, truncated show that we're going to do today because we both have some other commitments this evening. But we'll see you guys later for that. If not, we'll see you next week on another episode of MC Fireside Chats. Take care, guys. Appreciate you.
Bye everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.